Okay, so we're going to make a new slideshow, and my assumption is that you've already resized the photos to whatever size you want to use. I'm going to use photos that are 480 pixels wide by 360 pixels high, 72 dpi, and that you've renamed all of them to be photo underscore and then number 1, the next one's number 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever order you want it to go in. So we're done. I'm assuming that's done, that you have a folder set up, you're ready to go. So the first thing we're going to do is create new. That's easy. And I want to do something with the stage first, so I'm going to click it, and I want to change the size to 480 by 360, sort of my HD setup. I'm going to center the stage, and I'm going to change the color by clicking the color chip, and I'm going to make it sort of a dark, not completely black, but sort of a dark gray. All right, first thing's done. That was pretty easy. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to import the images that I've already prepared by coming over to the library panel, clicking the plus sign, and there's my images 1 through 5. I'm going to select them all, and I'm going to say open. And you'll notice they didn't go to the stage, they went right here into my library. I'm going to take my first photo and I'm just going to drag it on, put it right in the corner. Now it's not quite right, so I'm going to bring it down. It doesn't matter that I have those. I'm going to try to center it by, you can see the guides. Alright, so I got that. Now I have it still selected. You can see the lines. I'm going to do a couple things. First, I'm going to change the name of this to main photo. And we'll see, notice the capital letter. This is called camel case. So it's main photo, and I'm going to change right here where it says div to image. Alright, so far so good. Now I'm going to lock it so I don't screw it up. So this little dot right here between the eyeball and the name, if I click it, I'll lock it. That way I won't move it and screw it up. Now I'm going to create some buttons. Okay, I'm going to grab the ellipse tool, and I'm going to draw a circle. Just drag one out. Not too big. I want it to be a perfect circle, so I want the numbers to match. 26 by 26, perfect circle. I'm going to change the color, same way I did before. Click the color chip. I'm going to make it white. And I'm going to grab the text tool, right there, the text tool. And I'm just going to click in the center of this. And I'm going to come over on my keyboard and type Shift, and you'll see the arrows next to the M key. So I want this to go previous, so I'll just type that in. And I'm going to drag it right on top and center it. Now it's not exactly centered, so if I take my arrow tool and select both of them, and I go to Modify, Align, Vertical Centers, and then I am lined up perfectly. So there's my first arrow. Now I need one to match it on the other side. I can duplicate what I did, make a ellipse and then an arrow, or I can select this, both of these. I can hold my Option key, just like in Photoshop, and drag it over. And I can't see the arrow tool. Well, if I just click here and drag it below, drag the ellipse copy on top, come on, come on. And then we'll do it again. There it is, it's popped up. I don't know why it does that. It doesn't make sense at all. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn these into groups. So I'm going to select my first one. And I'm going to go Modify, Group Elements. And I'm going to name that grouped element, because you can see it's over here in the text. I'm going to name it Previous, P-R-E-V, Previous. Okay, so that one's done. And then I can hide that. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go Modify Group Elements, and I'll change that group from Group 2 to Next. Okay, So that's next. Now it's pointing the wrong way, so I have to rotate it. Now I happen to have a rotation thing right here, so it's a 90-degree rotate, I believe. Oh, I'm wrong, 180. Let's just type in 180. There you go. Now it's pointing the right direction. I want to make sure that these are aligned. I'm going to hide that for a minute. And they look aligned to me. I probably want to, there they are, use the lines. See the little smart guys? You can kind of see where they're going. Alright, so we're ready to go. Buttons are set. Everything's set on the stage. I can unlock my main photo now. And I have over here in the elements, which is important, I have my main photo, my previous button, my next button, and now we got to start our code. It's like, wow, that happened pretty fast. Like, I know, really, right? So now we want to do a little coding. And the first thing we need to do is open the code window. Well, mine's already open, but if it isn't, go to Window and then just check Code. And there you go, it's the code window. So here's stage. We don't have a preloader, but here's our stage. We're going to go over press the plus sign, English rough language, and creation complete. There you go. We can delete that comment. Now the first thing we need to do is set up a variable. Now variables are really straightforward. Variables are the way we keep count of things. For example, I'm going to write a variable. Keyword is var. I have to start that way. Image count. Now I just made that name up. You can call it any damn thing you want. I also camel case that because that's a programmer thing. Equals, and we're going to start at the number 1, semicolon. That's the first variable. So right now, if I wanted to know what that count was, it would be 1. I'm going to set up my second variable, and it's going to be num of photos. In other words, the number of photos I have equals, now we're going to use 5, but it could be 25, 35, 16, well, 11, who knows. But we have 5, so I'm going to do 5. That's setting up a variable. That's it. That's all we need to do. Now, we want to set up something that I didn't put on the stage to start, so I'm going to jump back to the stage using the tab over here, click, and I wanted to put the number of photos that we were using, so 1 of 5, 1 of 6, so I'm going to grab my text tool, and I'm going to click, and I'm just going to type the number 1. Now I'm going to change this to read, I'm going to give it a name. And the reason we give things a name is so that we can find it later if we need to in order to program it. So we need to give it a specific name. And the name that I'm planning to give it is, I'm going to call it PhotoNum. How's that? So I could call it photo number if I wanted to write it all out, but I'm completely lazy, so we'll just type PhotoNum. I'm going to make it white because it's kind of hard to see the black, so I'll change that to white. And I'm going to make it a lot bigger just by dragging this number. Whoops, dragging this number up, so we'll make it big, 50, and I'm going to move it up a little bit right there. Now I'm going to take the text tool again, and I'm going to click right next to it. Click. And what I'm going to put in here is I could put any number. I'll just put 5. And I don't want that as big, and I do need to give it another name. So I'm going to call this one, well, it's the total number of pictures, right? So why don't we just call it, Total Pics? That seems like a reasonable name. TOTALPICS. There we go, Total Pics. Note that it's over here in the elements, the new names show up there. And I don't want it as big because I'm going to set that up to be like number of. So 12 is a little small. Let's make it 20. And I'm going to drag this to center it. All right. So we've got 1 and we got 5. Not that that works yet, but we'll code it up. So we're going to jump back to the code using the tabs, and we'll continue on doing our programming. Now, Remember I said we wanted to put the total number of photos in the total, over here in the total pics. And we can do that. So the first thing we do, we're going to write a line of code, SYM. That's how you start all Edge things. It's a symbol, then stands SYM. $, which indicates we're going into jQuery. Open parentheses, double quote, and the name of the field that we want to add the total number of pictures in. So it's total pics, P-I-C-S, right? Close quotes, close parentheses, dot, HTML. Open parentheses. Now here we're going to put something, we're going to use our variable and a little regular English. So we're going to go open double quotes and type of, and then a space, then close your quotes, a plus sign, and then num of photos. That's your variable. Close it, semicolon. And that looks good. Num of photos. P-H-O-T-O. I didn't spell it right. That's why nothing happened. Let's try that again. Command return. And see how it filled in of 5. Just what we wanted to. Nothing else is ready yet, so we'll continue on. All right. So we did that part. Excellent. We're moving right along. Now we need to create a function. What is a function? A function is a list of commands that go together that do a lot of things at once. So it may be 5 or 6 lines of code, and every time we click a button, it's what plays. So first thing we need to set it up. So since we want to call this from any place in our composition, we have to start out with an edge command, SYM dot. Now we want to name this function something that makes sense to us. In other words, we have to name it something we can find, right? So what we want to name it is, I'm going to call it show photos, because that's really what we're doing, right? Show photos, and then an equal sign, and then the keyword function. Function. Yeah, that's it, function. Open a parentheses. We're going to send a parameter. So every time we click a button, it's going to send a parameter by the name of photo direction. Right? So we don't know which direction it's going in, right, left, whatever. But we know we're going to send it in a direction back and forth. So we want to do that. Now we need to open a curly brace, which if you don't know where the curly braces are, they're right next to the P key. And then I'll hit return, and notice it puts the curly brace right in there for me. I really appreciate that because I used to forget those all the time. So the first thing we need to do in this function is figure out what photo we're on. Because every time we click one of the buttons, we're either going to go forward one or back one. So we need to get an accurate count. So we're going to use our variable, image count equals image count. By the way, make sure you spell it right, because if you don't, like I just did, it'll cause all kinds of problems. It won't work, in other words. Count plus the plus sign, right? Plus what? Well, the direction the photo's either going. It's either going forward one or back one. So photo direction. All right, semicolon. Anytime you finish a line in code, you put a semicolon. Why? Direction. I spelled it wrong, but besides that, it's like the end of a sentence, and if you get it right, then you know it stops and it says, okay, I do this, now what? So we did that part. Now because we're running a slideshow, you don't want it to get to the end of 5 and then go to a blank, nor do you want to go backwards to 1 and then go to a blank when you go hit the next button. So what you want to do is you want to set up what's called a conditional statement. So what does that mean? It means that if something's true, you do something. So we use the keyword if. Okay, if the image count, have you noticed, is important. If the image count is greater than, use the greater than sign, the variable num of photos, If it's greater than that, close the parentheses, open some curly braces. If it's greater than that, what do you want to do? Well, I want the image count. Make sure I spell it right. IMAGE count. To do what? I want the image count to equal 1. Because if it's greater than 5, I want to go back to the beginning. Semicolon. Okay, that was pretty easy, right? I mean, I think so. And then semicolon after that. Next one, we're going to do the same thing. If the image count is what? Well, we think about it. It's the opposite direction, so it would be less than 1. What do we want to do? Well, we want to make the image count what? Equal to the number of photos. In other words, if we hit 1, it'll put us right back to 5. So you go to 1 instead of going to blank, we'll go back to 1. Throw down a semicolon. All right. So that makes sense, right? That's an if statement. So we figured that part out. Now we need to set, remember that num of photos, you know, we have 1 of 5, 2 of 5. We need to set that while we're here too. And we set that by SYM because we're talking directly to our jQuery, Edge, $. The name of that was, what was the name of that? That was photonum, right? I think so. PHOTO, photonum. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. You know, I could just look over here into the elements panel or the layers panel, and this is photonum. And it has to be exactly the same way, which I did. .html, open parentheses. Now, what would I put in there? I'd put the image count, the variable, because that's going to change every time we load a picture, so we want to get it right. All right, so far so good. You're like, yeah, right, Dodge, whatever. Now we need to do some big time shit. We are going to fade these images in, then we're going to fade them out, and we're going to load them. We got a lot of stuff to do, and it's all associated with jQuery. I know, it sounds much worse than it is. So how we're going to do this is we're going to speak directly to the main photo, because that's the thing that's going to change on a regular basis. So we're going to start with the edge, SYM dot $, and it's main photo. We know that by just looking over in the layers palette. And what do we want to do? Well, we want to fade out because we already have something in there. So we need to use the built-in function of fade out. We wouldn't fade it in because it's already there. Make sense? Of course it does, Mrs. Dodge. Yes, I know. Open parentheses. We want it to happen slow. And slow is just a word, so we'll put it in quotes, comma. Now we have to do a function again. Another function? Yeah, another function. So we use the keyword function. We're not passing any parameters, so we just need the 2 parentheses with nothing in it. A curly brace. Yay. Now what do we need to do? Well, we actually have to load the photo. So it starts the same way. SYM dot $, main photo, right? Dot. And here's where we're going to do something tricky. ATTR. And you're like, yeah, okay, now what? Well, what that stands for is attribute. And, oh, I spelled main wrong. See, you got to watch that shit. I'll get back to them. Okay, main. It's attribute. And all the HTML tags have attributes, and the one for the image tag, which is what we changed it to, is the SRC, or in other words, where the photo's located. Aha! So we're going to change that. We're going to go open parentheses, src, in quotes, and a comma. And then we're going to tell the browser where to look for the pictures. Well, when we save this, Edge is going to make a folder called images, right? And inside that folder is going to be all the pictures we want, which we name photo, right, underscore. Now here's the trick. This is how we're going to get the number in. So we're going to close the quotes, hit a plus sign, and then image count. Yeah, I know, really, like it's the same thing, right? Plus sign, open quotes, dot, and if you look it over in the library, it's .jpg. So make sure you get the same thing in quotes. All right. And I put it on the wrong side of the dot. I added an extra one, so there we go. Now we're right. That's important. Close the parentheses, semicolon, new line. Yes, we're making progress. Now we need to load the next picture. Well, we've told it what it should be, so all we have to do is say sym dot $, in quotes, main photo. Make sure I spelled it right. Close dot load. And I know you're going to love this. It's another function. Type the word function, open and close the parentheses, right? Pretty easy. Open a curly brace, hit a return. There we go. We're almost there. Now we need to tell it to fade in. So it's the same thing, sym dot $, and what are we fading in? The main photo. Right? And we're going to go fade in. Capital I, camel case, right? Fade in. And we're going to do it slowly. Or slow. Semicolon. Now you'll notice there's a red dot in here. Well, the reason there's a red dot is because we've got some extra curly braces and some things we need to do. So let's finish this up. We need to make sure this has a parentheses and a semicolon. And this one has a parentheses and a semicolon. And if you click off, creation complete. Missing a brace somewhere. And once you click off and click back on, I deleted one I shouldn't have deleted. So that's important, this last part, because whenever you open a parentheses or a curly brace, you have to close them. That's all. So we're set up. So the coding's done. Of course, we're not anywhere near ready yet, but at least the coding's done for the stage. Now we have to do the buttons. At least the buttons aren't that hard. So let's go over here to the next and click right in here, and then we'll add a click. So we're got that. Now all we need to do is call sym dot show the function. Show photos. Now, if I'm not sure what it is, I'm going to click back over here, make sure I got the right name. Yep, it is indeed show photos. Open parentheses. Since we're going to next, it would be 1. Close parentheses, semicolon. Now I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to come over here to my previous and click that. And I'm going to paste the same thing in, but instead of going forward, of course, we're going backwards, so I'd make it a -1. Now, buttons are set to do something. The image is set. The numbers are set. We have one thing to add, and that's a script. Wait a minute. I thought this thing came complete. Well, not exactly. You know, it's just one of those things you have to kind of live with. So what we're going to do is we're going to do ours by CDN, which would be Content Network Delivery. But you can also save this and save it to a folder. First, I need to go to my browser. And I want to go to a place called jQuery.com. And I'm going to click the download button. And what this brings me to is I can either download this, which when I click it would look like that, and then I'd have to go File, Save, and save it. Or, because I'm feeling lazy, I can scroll down this page and I'm looking for CDN, and yep, there it is, that first line. And I only need the word code to JScript and copy. Thank you, jQuery, I don't need you anymore. I'm going to press the plus sign over here, add script from URL, and right after those braces I'm going to paste it in. I don't need that quote. And say OK. Now believe it or not, when I test this, command return, and I click this, what? Nothing happened. Nothing happens. What happened? So I had to figure out why the image wouldn't show up, and I did. I forgot, and this is how precise coding is. Right here, before the JPG, I had to have a dot. Now when I test it, command return for it to be in browser. Yep, there we go. It works, and it works in both directions. Crazy how this shit is sometimes.